Okay, so I wanted to do something special for everybody. Um, I went back and forth about charging for this, but at the end of the day, I really believe this knowledge is for everybody, and life goes on. I'm gonna always be all right, especially if I'm sharing and helping others expand. And so, what I want to do here is actually, let's go to it. Give me a second. Um, my idea actually for this is basically a lot of people come to me and they ask if I mentor or if do one-on-one coaching. And although the idea of it sounds really nice, I'm also someone I really value my time and I use a lot of it. And I'm also just not always in a place where I can do that. Which is why, I put out the content, I do the books and my consultations like they're scheduled. Um, in certain points. And when it comes to that, I know that it's also more expensive and not everybody has, money to throw out. And I've been noticing, especially last week, I had a lot of chakra reading cards, which were only $5. And I helped out and I thought about it and I was like, you know what? This information that I've really been utilizing about 369, it truly belongs to the world. And I know a lot of people talk about it, but no one really goes deep down into it because they charge for it. And that's fine and dandy, but just and I tried. I was gonna make this $3, but I was like, guys, I don't know, just everything in me was stopping me. And something that I've noticed is expectation kills motivation. When I have certain expectations for certain things, I will not move. I won't do anything on it. As soon as I decided to remove an expectation, which was, charging because, oh, that was going to give me money for for, rent or insurance and everything, that expectation stops me because at the end of the day, the value isn't in, what comes out of it. The value is in the knowledge itself and being able to get to everybody. And be not bound by a money restriction, regardless of if it's $3. So really guys hope you guys and I really guys hope you guys I really hope you enjoy what I put together. I'm going to show you. I made a prezi, and if you're down for it, we can sit here together and just go over it. This is the first time I am going through it for a reason. I've got a couple like little notes, but this is all just, full out. Okay. The idea for this really started wasn't because, oh, I want to help others. I know that it's going to help others, but it's because I really want to start practicing if for when I'm going to do keynote speeches or anything. And I would also like to start. I really want to move away from doing sessions and I want to do like some face to face, like shaman work, like being around people. I want to be like a call up travel shaman or something. I'm not a shaman, but you know what I mean. I don't know. I just want to help people, but in different ways, change the trajectory of it. So let's go over my perspective of just becoming you, being integrated within the self. So I called this Becoming You, and it's basically a process towards a better mind and body and soul connection. I wanted to go over the themes essentially that I'll be hitting is the magnificence of 369. I basically have been following this since March and have been integrating it and better explaining it through experience the more that I do it. And here I am now. So we'll be talking about that as the basis. And I'll go over things like the law of perpetual transmutation of energy, which is also like the law of motion, always moving forward, the art of surrendering, faith versus fear, value, and then just talking about self regulation techniques. Not necessarily the techniques, actually, it's just the fact that you should do it. And I'm always about the why behind something because we can understand a lot of what we need to do, but if we really don't understand the why behind it, the value behind it, then we really won't do it, especially if it's not a value that holds true to us. Like, case in point, me charging for this. No, I believe that it belongs to everybody. And in a sense, if you're smart, I've said the same things on my TikTok. Just here, it's compiled up for you. Um, so who knows? Fingers crossed. Maybe I'll get some clients from this or something. So becoming you. So what is 369? 369 was something that Nikola Tesla really, and this is going to be all simple breakdown, but something that Nikola Tesla swore by. I really like this quote where he talks about, my brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that that exists. And it's really interesting because, that core that he's talking about is the quantum neural field that I am working on. It is this electrical field that we tap into, this that our thoughts, it oh wow, I just kind of was fumbling all over my words. It's that electrical field that we tap into. It is the medium for our thoughts, essentially. The 369 allows us, they're just kind of focal points, focus points on certain forces that help us to essentially connect to our heart and song, to understand our heart and song, the song within us. And what I basically say, what is your heart singing? So I say heart song. Our heart song is essentially that passion, that purpose that we feel within us, because essentially all life is just a vibration. So when I get into sound or vibrations, I think of a song. Like, what is harmonious within that sacred space within us that makes us who we are? 369 essentially breaks all of those down for us. And so to continue the breakdown of the forces. Three is the ego, essentially the material aspect of us. So this would be the mind and body. Something easy way to think about this is thinking of when you die, you no longer have a mind or and a body, but you will have that soul. But the soul is an integration of the experiences that they experienced here with the mind and body. Um, that's like reincarnation stuff. We'll get. I mean, I feel like if you're here, you should be knowing at least about that. Um, Number six is the high. Oh, sorry. The ego is basically the passive force. You will hear me say passive, active, and neutral a lot. Number six is the higher self, the active force, something that's always going on. Number nine is the knowledge, the wisdom. It's also the closing of cycles. I also like to say that it's the firmament around the earth. What's really funny is I really enjoy working with divinity a lot whenever I make any type of content. And so I have this deck. It's like Angel's Inspirations deck, and they have little words. And I ask them about like little words, like the unknown, which is really funny though. I asked them, I'm like, okay, tell me about the ego. Tell me about the passive force. Like, give me just a theme, a word. And so for the ego, they gave me the word change, which essentially the ego is always this one, the passive force, the one that's always changing, the one that's always dealing with some type of inner conflict that needs to be addressed and that needs to change. And essentially what is changing, it's just meeting the higher self. With every new moment, the ego needs to change. They meet the higher self. Higher self's like, good, high five, and then we move to the next level, and then the ego's like, fuck, I gotta do it again. That's literally all this is. And that the movement itself is the lesson, is the movement through the lesson, which closes the cycle. Boom, new cycle. Life is a perpetual transmutation of energy, constantly moving, the law of motion, right? So change. For the higher self, we got harmony and productivity. The higher self is the one that brings in that harmony, because what the higher self is, if connected to, it can bring in productivity, it can bring in movement, it can bring in harmony, it can bring in truth, clarity, but you have to connect. The number nine, they gave me sacred space, sacred knowledge, inspiration, and divine mystery, which is essentially same thing. Divine mystery, I would tag it to the firmament around. Number nine in astrology is Sagittarius energy. It's also higher knowledge. It is philosophies. It's all about, movement and getting out there to experience life. And that's the whole purpose of life, is to experience. We are infinity coming down to a finite level, I can't talk right now, a level that is bound in order to learn about ourselves for a short amount of time. Once it's over, we blink back into infinite, into infinity, infinite. Feel like I'm mumbling over my words, but doesn't matter. Roll with the flow. Moving forward. When it comes to the significance of three, so this is a force of life. That's what I put for it. What in the world? Okay. The significance of three. This is the mind and body mechanism together creating our person. So in my case, it creates Imani, that which is the character I'm embodying. Emotion is what makes us us. It is what this life is all about, energy and motion. So without this aspect, there would be no existence of you as a human being. Learn your being. It's literally what's required of us is to essentially get in control of our emotions, because our emotions are simply tools in order to for this us to live this life, but they're just tools and nothing more. We're not our emotions, we're not the feelings, we're witnessing them because they're telling us something. So they're no different than a sign on the wall that says caution, you know. You don't freak out and you're like, oh my God, I am caution. No, you're just like, okay, cool. And you pivot, you move, right? And so when we start to learn and get that detachment from the detachment comes from understanding this truly, but I don't believe that people will really get it until they experience it and they actually start to apply this. And I say I know, because we really don't ingrain information into our brains until the action happens. And so moving forward, and we'll go deeper into this, but essentially learn your being. It's the only work that is required from us. The number three is concerned with mainly this material plane of existence. It can be easily influenced by because of this dense reality. Essentially, the material reality that we live in is has a stronger hold on our mind, and that's just because it's like, think about, like, it's essentially taking up more mass. It's got a more magnetism of magnetization on it. I don't know. um and I say that too because also the body, this material world, is this magnetic field that we're constantly, magnetizing. And so we're electromagnetic beings, and there's two different fields operating at the same time. Our mind is operating within this higher realm, that doesn't need matter, and then our body does need matter, but because our body is matter, it is the one that's more, um, what could I say, it can overtake our thoughts more easily because this seems more real. And that's why, you get into it being an illusion. People think that, that's all there is, but no, it's really a combination between the both. But because people think that this is more real, it essentially holds more weight, and that then becomes the issue of needing to get into an uh integrated relationship with your body and your mind. Two different beings. Like, I could say two different persons, if we want to say that. Your body is your own person, your mind is its own person, and then your soul is the person witnessing both of those to just kind of kick it out here, right? um and then going on to the significance of three. Also, the ego needs repetition, patterns, routines, regulation, understanding, and integration. And this is what I really want to get into is the ego is always concerned with why and how things happen, because they want to know the sequence of events. They want to know how much time it's going to take. They want to know what they need to do, um, to get there, right? They want to have all the pieces together. The only reason they want that is because it is a product of this plane. It is a product of this existence. But the thing within this existence is sequence. It is a series of things, one after the other. It is about knowing that, essentially all time happens all the time. So we naturally sense that, like, there's something next, and then that there's steps that need to be taken. And so sometimes that ego part of us can really get so lost in wanting to know about why we do certain things, that it doesn't allow us to really free flow. So then we start to pay so much attention to this material world, because the material world has always said, oh, I got it, you do this and you can get this, and you do this and you can get this. And it really pulls us out of trusting ourselves. But the thing is, because the ego needs repetition, patterns, routines, regulation, understanding, and integration, when you start to get on this journey of learning yourself, you're now then brought to the forefront with all of this repetition, patterns, and routines that aren't yours, that were made before you knew that you had this other part of you that had just as much as the blueprint to go along with the game plan that you were always going. But the ego mind pays attention to what's going on outside to figure out life. And that's kind of where we all are operating at first when we're learning about ourselves, until we then dip into the integrated part, which we'll go to next. The significance of six is essentially our higher self. This is the active force. um this is our higher self. The intelligence of this entity surpasses the material realm of knowledge, meaning that this material world, once again, it surpasses it. It sees the material world, and it sees the sequence of events, and because it sees all that is, it knows all that is about our life, essentially. And so that's why whenever we're finding out stuff about our lives, it's good to tap into that entity, because they're the ones that literally have the blueprint, the active force, something that's always happening. The ego is the passive force. Let's think of passive aggressiveness or passive. It's kind of like you're half-assing, or like, you're not really, full out everything. There's still some that needs to be tweaked, or you're not really your real self, or it's coming off just, a little bit off. Passive force still needs a little bit tweaking before the truth kind of gets out. Passive force always, a little passive too, because it's like also concerned with everything else. The active force is the higher self. It knows exactly what it is. And so when we're going on about life and we're asking, oh, why is this, why is that, or why did this happen, why did this happen, we're constantly looking for answers outside of ourselves. But outside is just a reflection of inside, but it's also a bunch of relative truths. The outside, everybody, oh, relative, everybody else has been sending out energy into this world. But when you want to find out about yourself, you need to stop for a second and talk to that number six. But we also get deeper into the idea that, it's the mind and the body that connect together to talk to six. You yourself is six at your truest core. But also, in this lifetime, we're operating the mind and body. And so in this world, we're playing a character. So the significance of six, which is the embodiment of the soul that is connected to all that is, it has the blueprint that the ego gives off through the thoughts, because thoughts create our reality. The ego has the desire, it has the impetus, it has the will. The ego is like a little kid. The mind and body is like a little kid, and it's like, hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want a new car. Hey, I want, and I'm gonna, for the sole purpose of something about a body. Hey, I want to have sex. Hey, my period, I'm cramping. Hey, I need money. You know. Hey, what's the meaning of life? The mind can ask questions like that or whatever, but those are all desires and stuff that are signals that come from the body and the mind, as an entity itself, this whole entity. And the higher self is like, okay, cool, if this is going to help us grow and expand in life, bet. If this is in alignment with the destiny we chose, bet. When we naturally tune in, we naturally have the desires and the wants that align with where we need to go. I'm not forcing myself here, to be like, oh, you gotta learn quantum physics, you gotta learn consciousness. Yeah, I'm not forcing myself. What I'm doing is I'm literally just kind of letting myself flow with wherever I go. I trust myself, I follow my passion, and it just so happened to be this. So the things that I want and desire just naturally fall aligned with my desire. I mean, with my purpose. So my higher self is like, yeah, you can do this, Imani, because it's in alignment. But the only way I get there, I need to know I need to be asking the right questions, wanting the right things that are for me. And this is when we get into people talking about, this is why it says it needs to be integrated through routine that allows the ego to use it as a teammate, a thesaurus. This is important because, there's free will. I can go say, I could say, for example, I could say, I want to rob a bank. If I need money, I want to rob a bank. Okay, sure, I could go rob a bank. I really could. but also there's other things going on. This is why we don't really have free will. At the end of the day, we have free will to stay in alignment and do our purpose any way we want. We don't really have free will to be like, oh, okay, my purpose now is to rob a bank. Because what is that helping consciousness do with your mechanism? What I want to start telling people and recognize is, you start learning about yourself when you start getting into things like astrology. That is your quantitative aspects. Y'all hear me talk about that all the time. Your quantitative aspects, the parts of you that make you. It's getting dark. I'm gonna have to turn on my light. The number 6 has the why and the how to situations that the ego brings up, but it's only revealed through the conscious work on the ego's part to make action. Meaning Imani has to actually do the things. I can't just, conceptualize about stuff. Also, guys, I just started my period. I'm in pain. After this, I'm gonna go to sleep. And then we start the day. Without any action towards connection, the significance of 6 will be overpowered by the ego's current desires. Because the ego, like it says, without any action towards the connection, meaning if you don't connect, if you don't, sit and meditate, or at least just sit for a second and be like, yo, higher self, what's up, what's good? If you don't at least do that, then the ego basically is just going to run the show, And as much as it's cool and it feels good and it feels nice to be comfortable within the ego and, going hanging out with your friends and everything, we can get into being unbalanced, overindulgence, creating chaos that could have been avoided. So we connect to this higher self of ours. We're not getting rid of our control. If anything, we're literally just connecting to a higher part of ourselves, a one that's a lot smarter than us, making it a lot easier. Okay? So it's the basis, right? So the significance of 9. We talk about the higher knowledge that leads us to movements out of old energy and into new energy, asking us for a new set of knowledge that is then to be acquired by playing the game some more. So basically, how when I said, the higher self's right here. So let's say levels. So the higher self's here, this is a set of the space in between is the lessons we go through, right? The experiences. And as you do that, what you're doing it, you're moving that process because you're trying to get in balance, in harmony with the higher self. What you're doing there is you are closing the gap. You are moving through cycles, using your knowledge, your past experience, the stuff that we'll talk about. That's the significance of 9, is once you do that, you're essentially also expanding. You're learning more about yourself. You're moving forward in sequence. Because remember, infinity, in order to measure infinity, consciousness came down here to learn about itself. In order to do that, consciousness had to squash itself down, creating time, which then creates a sequence, a lifetime. Time, once we die, we just kind of get swooped back up into infinity. But it's like you stop being unsquished, you stop being compressed, you stop being dense. The more that we move through life, the more that we close these cycles, the more we learn about ourselves. And so when we find ourselves being stagnant or just sitting and being like, oh, this is just how it's supposed to be, never. Anxiety, depression, all of those are energies left unchecked. As much as we don't want to hear it, we have a certain responsibility. Every day is an opportunity to be more evolved, to be the more evolved version of yourself. I'm not saying, go read 80 books in a day. No, but maybe be kind to yourself and, have some compassion. And if you're past that point, at least maybe, brush your teeth, or maybe even do that. See how you can work to get yourself to brush teeth, or see how you can work, even if it's simple tasks. That's the thing. I feel like when people are starting to want to grow and do change, we forget to take the baby steps, and we don't realize that it's small steps that compound to the new results, right? showing that we're worthy enough of showing up for ourselves. And I don't even say like we have to prove our worth, but what it is through actions, what you're doing is you are quite literally changing your vibration. When that vibration changes, you then um start to magnetize a new reality. That's when reality starts changing. Number 9 is concerned with coming to an understanding of your present moment and why it was necessary to go through that to get to where you needed to be, where you desire to be. This is essentially the embodiment of wisdom gained from reaching for a higher philosophy of our own being, our own ministry of self, being an expert of you. But you only figure that out the more you do, the more you implement what you learn. And people say this all the time. Oh, how, Imani? This is why I really wanted to sit here. It is nothing to absorb knowledge and sit. Number 9 asks you to use critical thinking to apply your knowledge to experience through movement so it can be integrated into wisdom and you can actually understand and can act accordingly. Act accordingly is essentially pivoting your perspective, your movements, because now you've learned something new, you've gained knowledge. Next, let's move. So that's the basis, right, of life that I've been following. Is identifying the passive force, the active force, and the neutral force, which is going to always be the knowledge, the thing that needs to happen. To give you a better understanding, it's kind of like, I know what I need to do, but no, okay. But the but would be the passive force. Identify why that's happening. The ego. Passive force. It requires some serious elbow grease, some work, hard work, and actually not hard work, valued work. Because I wouldn't want to do hard work. You wouldn't want to do. Why would anyone want to do hard work? So I started to change. I started to say it's valued work because I move where I'm valued. What ye send forth, come back to thee. So ever mind the rule of 3. Whatever we're sending out into the universe, it's gonna come back to us because of this life being a lesson. The mind and body make up this force, the passive force. Its mere existence in this plane causes it to create this split entity from the soul. What I want to explain to you is actually a cloud. I think I can find it. Let's see. It's like a rainbow cloud or something. But this rainbow cloud, let's see. Oh my God, no. I don't know what it is. Okay, so basically what happens in the universe, the way that we are created, is some substance. Well, we are light beings, so we get essentially differentiated from consciousness. We get pushed into this plane of existence, this denser level. And nobody really wants to come at this dense level because they don't realize how hard it is to move in this level. Especially when you are consciously aware of who you truly are, it becomes harder to move in this material realm. But what happens is we get here. We probably get low down to some type of low temperature, or some chemical reaction happens that causes our body to form, causes some cells, because remember, our body is its own entity. It's made of a bunch of cells, CELLS, a bunch of cells. those cells probably do something, a chemical change, which bond them together, which make them have form. The chemical change has to be some type of slowdown in particles, where they slow down so much so they turn into a material object, because now it's been immersed in time. Time gives it duration. So that's how our body is made somehow. And then this light energy needs to go inside. Remember, we're like crystals inside of us. We're electromagnetic beings. The body itself is that magnet part that's going to magnetize the energy inside of us. The conscious aspect hops inside the light, and we are hit by the sun. That's why, the sun's there. We'll all die if the sun's not there. The sun hits us most likely in our pineal gland, because there's probably some crystals there, because crystals, in some sense, we need to be refracted. It's the same thing, the way I have it written down. Give me a second. It's a cloud. Pileus cloud. Pileus cloud. Okay. Since I am screen sharing right now, we're going to look at this together. And all right, check this out. Let's see. Let me check this out. Here you go. Okay. Okay, no, we're going back. That's so weird. They have like no photo of it. Okay. Boo. I can't find it right now. But it's a new cloud actually that just showed up in China, and someone described it. And it looks like this, but in the middle, it's like a spectrum of light right in the middle. Because what happens is air rises, hot air, that air rises, and it's met with like some other temperature, and that combination creates the form, right? So two different vibrating frequencies meet they're received in time. So let's talk about, let's say our true self is received in time, creating a form. Okay. And then within that form, without the sun, without any type of refraction, we would only be this body. And I don't have the photo, and so I couldn't show you. I'm kind of sad. So whatever. But anyway, basically, whatever form that we have, so our body, the sun comes into, and it's like a crystal, and it's like a projection, like literally sun goes into our pineal gland or some type of crystal within us, and then we like open our eyes, and then like through movement, like are creating the reality. It's like literally a oh my god, what is it called, a hologram. And so this is what I'm saying, is the mind and body make up this force, this passive force. Its mere existence in this plane causes it to create a split entity. The body had to be created in order for the energy to be conducted within it. The body is just the conductor. It helps move along. It's the magnetizing part. That's why, the body knows when we shouldn't be around someone, when we should go somewhere or turn right or make a left or eat something. The body is picking up on different forces as well as the mind. The mind is not bound by time, so it picks up on things from the past and from the future and in the moment. That's why, we get things like anxiety, depression. The mind sometimes can get stuck within a point in space, within time, if we do not check on certain parts of those. That's why it's really important for us to have a balanced character. Time creates a character for the soul to play as a role for a lifetime. That character is the mind and body, the healing of the mind and body. Why would this be an important process to give time and energy to? because without it, you're moving half-ass. Because without it, it's like trying to push something uphill that's really, really heavy by yourself when there was an elevator. And continuing to operate off of only the body or the mind is like straining when you don't have to, making the mind take all of the troubles, making the body take all the troubles. We'll start to make this make more sense later on, but I told you I'm just talking. The information the mind and body hold from the past experiences and influences can hinder growth. Okay, this is something we talk about. We know. But why? Because the experiences themselves are there for us to grow. It is an opportunity for us to grow. Doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter how short. And that's the problem and that's why we see childhood trauma a lot. Although adults go through trauma, obviously, but it's our experiences that make us who we are. When we don't, and when we say that, oh, I don't like yada yada, or I don't like blah blah blah, it's probably because there was an experience. And if there was never an experience, maybe you're picking up on some old energy, or maybe you're just picking up on future energy. Remember, the same information the mind and body hold from past experience and influences can hinder growth. It's like if you were TMI, I mean not TMI, trigger warning, sexually assaulted or anything, stays within the body. Obviously, the mind is probably going to want to lock it out, but the body also, if not worked through, because it's own entity. Yes, your mind was there. Yes, we're perceiving any experiences, but also the body can hinder that. I mean, hold that in. Let's think about myself, for example. Even just a moment that's not as dark, but I want to give all good examples. In my freshman year of high school, I got a lead role, and a lot of people were pissed at me because they didn't get it, and I was a freshman, and basically I was hated on a lot because I had this role. And so that is for the first time when I was 14 years old, I believe. That's when I started to make myself feel small. I wouldn't share my light as much because, I don't want my actions to be too big for someone else. I've been unhealing that lately. I haven't been posting my content. I've been, charging for it, doing all the stuff like talking about. If people want it, not if they want it, they want it. No, I'm not having faith in myself. I'm afraid to, share and stuff like that. But where does that come from? My mind knows that, that's not happening. But it's also our body is the one that is bound by space and time. When we feel familiar energy, our body catches it. And our body can tell the mind and be like, hey, this feels like this moment from when we were 14 years old. React this way. And then the mind starts doing something, but the mind is like, what the fuck? There's something going on right now. What do you mean, body? And the body's like, what do you mean? Because the idea of life is, through life, we learn different things. This is when I start getting into astrology explaining perfection years. I won't go too deep right here, but we learn different things because let's say when I was 14 years old, I spoke up for myself, or maybe, maybe I spoke up for myself or I had something happen. In that moment, I would have done something. I would have made action. My body would have registered that. And then I probably wouldn't, feel bad now, because then when that same energy of me, shining my light, I don't shut down. I actually speak up like I did when I was 14 years old, but that didn't happen. So the body continues to react as it happened the very first time it was introduced to that energy. That's why The body reads repetition patterns. It's important to know, and I'll get deeper into this. I talk about reference points, but it's important to be consciously aware in each present moment of what your body is doing because it's preparing you for the next couple moments. How can opportunities keep coming to you when you keep, choosing to sit on your phone or something? I'm talking to myself right now. Then I'm going to keep wanting to sit on my phone for the next times. Change really is uncomfortable and you really have to face it head on. But know that it's not just you, it's your mind and your body. So then you have to start getting creative. We'll get deeper into that, but let's move forward. The alignment is essential to gaining a sharper momentum, a momentum, giving you a better aim at the connection between the ego and the soul. The alignment between the mind and the body is important because it gives you a better connection towards the soul. You can't connect with the mind with just, you technically can, but you know, when we bring ourselves into balance as much as we can, that's why I have a routine of, dancing in the morning, flowing, moving that energy out of my body as I'm thinking and I'm moving and I'm integrating that energy. And then I sit down and then I connect. Because now I've been consciously, I've become aware of myself, my mind and my body. You can also do this by just staring at your hand. It really is like this crazy experience. Simple but crazy because it's just my hand, but I'm not my hand. My hand is my hand. My hand is a bunch of different cells together just doing its thing, doing its destiny, which is to be my hand, its own entity. When addressing healing, I want to talk about childlikeness. My grandma was talking to her. She said, when you grow up, you start taking life too serious. This life is too short. It should be taken serious, but a certain kind of fun should still be had. You don't know when you won't wake up. I edited that last part a little bit. I was like, but a certain kind of fun should be still had. She was talking about that, but she got dementia. I know what she was trying to say. This tattoo is for her. In 2007, she had a aneurysm and a stroke. And she lost a lot of years of her life, but she's definitely alive, still kicking it. She's great now. But when it came to her, she lost a lot of her life. And, that's why she talks about, you never know when you're going to wake up. Take full advantage of it. This book, In the Light of Truth, the Grail Message, chapter 10, page 60, talks about childlikeness, talks about how strange it is that every man who wishes to experience the Christmas festival in the true sense must first try to recall his childhood. Like when they go, oh, I remember when I used to yada, 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 yada. Because at the end of the day, sometimes, as a child, we really are so present in there that we do feel all of the feelings. We can bank true reference points and not a half-assery because we're worried about what's going on outside of ourselves, right? As a child, we were dependent on, people to take care of us. So we spent a lot more time, just doing what we did, paying actual attention, being present, creating more reference points. But as time goes on, as life happens, trauma goes. The people outside of my window are always. Anyway, that's how trauma goes. I'm kind of off topic. Let me finish. I've just been smacking on these sunflower seeds. I did not mean to do this, but whatever. Um, Point is, I basically was reading about childlikeness. He's talking about, the adult must not forget that childlikeness is not childish. Become as children. you know? It says to fathom what childlike is, you must first be clear that the childlike is by no means bound up with the child itself. No doubt you yourself know children lack the true beautiful childlikeness. I'm going to skip this part because I don't want it to get too confusing, but basically they're talking about how that which is called childlike on earth is a branch of the effect from our purity in its highest, not merely earthly human sense, is love. Childlikeness is the result of inner purity. Love works in the ray of inner purity, where when you have love, when you have unconditional love for everything, good, the bad, the unknown, the known, you kind of just take it as it is and you keep it pushing. A child sees everything and they're like, oh, okay. But they also have their certain type of innocence to them. That innocence inspires confidence. Confidence to try, to move. One of the greatest gifts of a human being is thinking, but also thinking, then we have the duty of it's our duty to investigate that thinking. Once we have a thought, we investigate it. But it can get stopped by confusion from others telling us what we think that it can be. Confusion from ourselves because, oh no, that couldn't be me. It's lack of faith. When healing the mind and body, you do have to have a certain childlikeness because it requires imagination. It requires you to sit down and have faith in something that you can't see. But it also requires you what meditation, what sitting down and connecting is. You're building that world in that medium, in that quantum neural field. You're building a real world that you can go visit when you close your eyes, when you tune in. And the more that you do it, the more you close the gap between the planes, making it, easier to connect to where you don't have to, sit down for 15 minutes and talk. I talk all the time to myself. I'm constantly in a channeled state with myself and the universe. Because to me, my adult world of imagination looks like a quantum computer, where if I want to know something, I look around me. If I have a question, it's either brought to me from the internet or in a book that I randomly feel inclined to go grab. Or maybe I read colors. I read numbers. It comes through a number. It comes through colors. Someone walking on the sidewalk. And I just so happen, be inclined to do that. It might come through a conversation. The more that you pay attention, the more that you'll start to read and see that world of imagination can be everywhere if you can learn how to decide how to connect with it in your own way. And this is where the childlikeness comes in. In the light of truth in the beginning, he was talking about, how silly it is to get to a certain place of feeling that I want right now. I have to think back to when I was a child. That is so sad to think that you can't feel this way now. What would a world of imagination, of adult imagination, if people could just be in tune and harmonious with themselves, what would that require from us? Connection and intention. What do you mean by connection here, Imani? It's the practice of being aware right now, every day, connecting. Where I tell you, I look up, I can tell you right now, I'm wearing the color gray. That's a representative of clarity, seeking clarity, but also giving clarity. I'm making this video today. My shorts are pink. Compassion. It's also short, closer to my sacral chakra. It's also over they're a little higher. over my stomach right now. My sacral chakra is asking for compassion, nurturing, care, love. I'm on my period right now. I just started this morning and the cramps are slowly coming in. But it's the idea that here, that's my connection. That's what being aware has gotten me is I can look at anybody and be like, damn, I know exactly what's going on. But it's because also I took the time to work on myself and be like, that's not childish. When I recognized what was going on in the universe, I released expectations of how the connection needed to be. And I just followed my heart. I had the intention of connecting and I followed it. This world, like I said, is a bunch of relative truths. These truths relate to all sorts of people, but you have to find your own way of finding your truth out. Everybody's got a different passion. Society lately, not lately, but how it has been, has sheltered people connecting to themselves. Because, and then people start to ask, oh, if we're all quitting our jobs and stuff, who's going to take care of stuff? Y'all, that's the closed mindedness. This is where the childlikeness comes in. If people were true to themselves, could you imagine what they built? Could you imagine the things that just naturally happen? We are harmonious creatures. Life is already set out. It's when you start to infringe upon somebody else's destiny that it then becomes a problem. The issue is how. How do we begin to design a structure for connecting and sending out intentions into the world to be reflected back to us? How can you get creative in getting to know yourself? Okay, so my roommate, I remember one time I was talking and she was like talking to me about work. And she was like, how? She was like, no. She was like, I want to tell you something. She was like, I'm sorry, if this is loud for anybody, like, I'm snacking. So y'all just gonna have to deal with it. She basically was like, I remember you told me that there's a quantum neural field. And she was like, and with that idea, she was like, energy. She was like, I just took some like invisible scissors in my head. And she was like, and someone was bothering me at work. And she was like, and I just kind of snipped the cord, cut my energy off. I was like, wow. Oh, she did that? She was like, yeah. She was like, it was like temporary. She was like, but like, and I was like, that, yes, that's the idea basically. Is in thinking about the ego, the passive force. The higher self knows that we can do anything. We're only using like, I remember I saw someone described us using our brain, the brain being a giant complex computer, and what we're accessing is just the home screen right now. I was like, I'm screaming. But that's really what it is the higher self knows that there's so much more, but the ego, the things that get in our way, stop us. And so the passive force, it is our job to stop for a second. When we notice chaos, when we notice things happening, what is the passive force here? What is preventing me from yada yada yada? Is it a person? Is it your environment? Is it a thought process? Is it a mindset? Is it a routine that you're carrying? Is it a structure that doesn't belong to you? Is it something of value that you don't even value, or something that isn't valuable to you, that doesn't align with you? Like me, I really wanted to make this video. I really wanted to put it out. And I wasn't going to do it until tomorrow. I was just going to keep pushing it back because I didn't want to charge for this, but I needed money. Yeah, but that expectation killed my motivation. That expectation in thinking that, oh, I need to charge for this because this is the only way I'm going to get paid. That's such a small-minded thing. And this is what I mean. It's small stuff like this to where people can look at me and might be like, oh, Imani, yeah, you do need to get paid. My mom kind of yelled at me. She was like, Imani, it's been a year. She was like, you're doing good in your business, but like, what do you really have to show for it? I was late on my car note. I'm like, bro, That's because also I wasn't trusting myself those times. I was always trying to clean up. And for the first time this time, not charging for this, that's trust within myself. But I feel a lot better because once I got rid of that expectation, when I sat and recognized the passive force, what is getting in the way of me meeting my higher self, my active force to continue to move forward through number 9, 3, 6, 9. What is the three? What is the passive force right now? It was thinking that by just sharing, by just being me, which me is, I freely talk about this freely. And I think that it belongs. By just doing that, I'll be taken care of. I know my life. And I know this is different for everybody else, but this is what I mean. Real life example. I don't know how he's gonna do it. I don't know why I do know why I just broke into that, but something about life is, especially faith. I call my journey a faith-based journey. Faith is opposed to fear, fear is opposed to faith. But where there is faith, there is going to be fear come up because consciousness is dualistic. Where there's one thing, there's another. But just because we're embodying this one thing doesn't mean that we have to pay attention to it. We just are aware because consciousness is a dualistic aspect, as above, so below. Positive, negative, neutral. The importance of three: passive, active, neutral, but they all make up the same thing. Black, white, together, gray, yin and yang, or whatever, making up the same thing. I want to give you an example. It's like I'm inside. If we can be talking, discussing, we've been talking this whole time. I'm inside, and then someone could just randomly come in and be like, well, there's an outside, and there's people outside. You could be outside. Okay, I could, but I'm here, inside. I recognize that there is an opposite to inside. There is an outside. Doesn't make me go, oh shit, you're right, I should be outside. That's how people sound. That's how myself sounds. Like, that's how I talk myself into continuing faith within myself. Is I can stop and I can be fearful. 2 seconds ago, I really wasn't going to make this video because I was like, bro, you're making the decision to charge because out of fear, you don't believe that the universe is going to take care of you from just doing this. I do care. And when I realized that that was the passive force that has messed me up so many times, I was like, oh shit. And once I got rid of it, immediately my motivation came back because expectation is the killer of motivation. We just have to let things flow. But it's a constant work between how do I stay within that flow? You open your mind to new ideas. And I want to go back here. Don't wait. Don't wait for being like, oh, I have to have this, or oh, I need the right moment, or oh, I'm not, yada, yada, yada. There's only the present moment, bro. There's literally only this moment. Do you know how many times I feel like I've waited on things and then it's like, if I would have just did it, I could have been built this skill, and the amount of time I waited, I could have continued and gotten better. Don't become complacent within yourself, thinking that it's got to be. This is what I mean. Baby steps, small moves, small steps combined make up change. It's easier to get yourself to just kind of go for it, step by step, rather than start it all at once. Oh, my stomach is killing me. Got some cramps. It's all right, we're almost done. Don't wait. This is the important part. When people are creating change, they try to take what other people have done and just kind of slap it on their life, and then they're like, it doesn't work for me now. Or they wonder why, again, it fizzles out because they expected someone else's structure to help them rather than kind of just looking, seeing what they're doing in their window of life, and being like, okay, how can I take some of these aspects that I value and that I believe would be good for me and what I got going on in life, rather than just trying to put on what they got going on. What are the patterns of your three? What are the patterns of your life? Create a routine around what you're already operating on. Common mistakes when we try to change. So we already know that the 369. I explained it because I really wanted you to understand that, to think of yourself as a different entity. Common mistakes, many times when we want to move through change, we try to input a structure as is without tweaking it. This is because of restriction. We can't bring in energy. We can't be good conductors when there's some type of restrictive energy within us, something stopping us from truly sending all that light through. You have to become a superconductor. A superconductor is something that carries an electric current without restriction. So when you have an intention, when you have a thought, which is an electric current, you have to make sure it's not being restricted by something, unclarified sediment, things that have not been looked at. What is restricting this light from coming through? The darkness utilizes the ego to get in the way of the light. The darkness doesn't block the light. The darkness utilizes things in the material realm, things already within us. That's why knowing yourself is easier when you spend time on yourself. So then when you start to take in other people's structures, you can use discernment. What is discernment? Google definition. I looked it all the way up. The ability to judge well. It is perception in the absence of judgment with a view to obtain guidance and understanding. Meaning, you're listening to this, little workshop video that I'm making. The way that I put it is for a reason, so that, you can think for yourself, but you're listening to this and you can be like, oh, well, for example, actually, let's say the 369 method. Let's say if I was like, okay, write this 3 times, write this 6 times, write this 9 times. People do that sometimes. To me, I've never used that method. That's never been my 369 method. I've done passive, active, and neutral force. When it comes to the 369, if I were to say that here, you would have to use discernment. Or I'll give you an example. I'll use discernment. If someone were to tell me, write this down 369 times, whatever the fuck. Okay. First off, I don't like to write. I don't like prompts. So that structure wouldn't work for me. For someone who likes to sit and journal and do prompts, that structure would be great for them probably. But I also don't really view manifestation techniques like that. So I can't use a structure like that. I believe we're consciously manifesting all day, every day. I barely even like to use the word manifest. This is just what life is. We're just here to expand, and manifestations is essentially a materialized version of something that you had within you, something that you wanted to investigate, you wanted to try out. That could be anything. You manifest your same life every day. You manifest the body because your soul had an intention, and so a bunch of other conscious pieces come together to help you out. So that's why you have to be careful not to just take on what everybody else is saying. Everybody, oh, I wrote it right here. Not everybody out there is for you. When you get information, sit for a fucking second and be like, is this for me? What do we think about this? Take some time. We're so into instant gratification. We're trying to get everything all over the place. We work so ass backwards trying to create our real life, create our life from the outside without tuning inward. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. So now what? So you read the books, you listen to the workshops, you get new perspectives, you watch my TikTok videos, you watch someone else's TikTok videos, some people buy a master classes, some people go on YouTube binges. So you've got the information. Now what? It's your time. Use critical thinking. Apply that bitch. Every moment in our life is an opportunity to show our growth. Is an opportunity to subconscious reprogram our mind to problem solve. After the emotion energy has been felt, we then release it and do something about it. How well have you realized your experiences have shaped you in each moment? And can you use those moments as reference points to expand? Let me give what I mean by that is like, how well have you recognized your experiences? How self aware are you of your life and how it affected you? Good, bad, ugly. I had a pretty good childhood, and I was like, I don't have like childhood trauma. Because childhood trauma doesn't necessarily have to be bad and, you know, abusive, I guess. It can be like a people pleaser or something, or like seeing other people grow up, like my mom, always helping people. But it's like, at the end of the day, the universe only helps those who help themselves first. I'm no good to anybody if I'm not giving from my overflow. I'm never in no lack like mindset. I'm constantly taken care of. And I don't have to do anything. But I know and realize my experiences because I go back and I look at my reference points. Let's give some examples. Let's go back. Life. The idea for this is essentially blank slate energy. Flying free. Taking what you learn. I want you to think about life, this earth school, literally being a place where, we literally just kick it. We come to have fun, we come to hang out. We come to learn. What in your life can you do? When I said, what are you already doing? What patterns? And think about, let's say, brushing your teeth. You can kill two birds with one stone. You can, let's see, what else did I write? You can kill two birds with one stone. You can take, let's say you brush your teeth. You get up in the morning time. The teeth represent a whole bunch of different things, but like I know the backs are like, wisdom teeth, how much or what a representation of your worth. Regret, brushing your teeth and sending energy because this is movement. All you need is intention, a conduit, and some type of action, and you're good. That's all you need. An intention, a container, or some type of action to push that energy into it. So, for example, that's how we were born. The intention of us, our frequency, our soul needed a container, this body, and it needed movement. The speed of light going down into a form. Boom. Mini little black hole or some BS that then creates us. Same thing here. I was talking about how I make up my bed with intention. I recognized I was already making action. That's already half of the equation. There's already a container, my bed. Your bed can hold energy. So now I needed the intention. A human being is not here to just make up their bed. We're here to utilize the bed, the process to grow. That's what I do. That's how I grow so fast, so quickly. Colors. I'm wearing the color gray. If I intentionally wanted to do this, I could have sat here and been like, oh, if my mind was worried about it, I intentionally would have been like, oh, I'm going to wear the color gray with intention of receiving clarity. But my body, its own entity, just, I just grabbed a shirt. Oh, I'm just wearing this gray shirt. Nothing is coincidence. My body naturally picks that. My hand goes to it. That's what I mean. Take what you know and build. I know that I make content. I know that I need to practice, speech and everything. I need to practice talking. I actually kind of forgot to make this like a speech. I'm genuinely, as I started to talk, like my period is killing me. I honestly want to end it, but I'm just here talking. Like, y'all just love me to talk. But whatever, let's go on. Experience gives reference points. It is important for us to take a step back and look at our present moment and see if we can identify the familiar energy. What is happening that might be asking for us to move differently this time? How can you create a new reference point? It's not recognized within us, our life. It shows up on the outside. So when people are saying, oh, I got a lot of shit going on in life, life is chaotic, probably because you've ignored yourself for too long, that it no longer just trusts you to deal with it up front. So it constantly just, hops outside of you. When there's something wrong, it's going to come within us first. It might then start to be a mood. And if we continue to ignore it, it'll start seeping out into our reality. You might run into someone dealing with the same thing, be like, I'm dealing with the same thing. Because that's the universe trying to show you to address that. Experience, and when we make moves, when we act on things that are in alignment, it creates reference points, just how I was talking about. It creates this memory, but it's more than just a memory. It's a reference point because the next time that energy happens, our body and our mind are going to think back to that reference point, because no new things really can be created until we actually make the movement. Sitting here, I could have made the video and still charged $3 for it, but that would not have been, I almost did, because it's what I've been doing. But that's how that's how I started getting issues of finances and everything, because then I stopped just naturally sharing like I was, and I was like, oh, it's all about money. It's all about a quick buck. Not a quick buck, but it's all about taking care of myself. I'm gonna be taken care of regardless. I'm like Jesus and the 12 disciples. I don't care if 2 people hear me. I'm gonna somehow be okay. Because I also know I have so many reference points of when I was taken care of. And all of the times where I tried to control and force, it only brought more chaos. I noticed that sometimes we can do things because of other people, because of other people's perceptions, when at the end of the day, they might just be doing that. They might just be being used as also like a little test to see if you're trusting yourself and your reference point. I'm spilling so many sunflower seeds over. I'm also kind of forgetting what I'm talking about. Oh, this is wild. But I always want to, do it tired, do it afraid, do it sleepy. We should be doing things from a place of center, but something about me is when I have an idea, I really have to act on it. because I can't carry this into tomorrow. I got other things I gotta create. And since this is no longer tied to, oh, I'm gonna make money off of this, this is just another little piece of content because it's all I'm supposed to be doing. But it was off of those reference points that I experienced where I was able to then stop, look back, and be like, maybe this is a new way we could go about it. Or I think about the original thoughts that I had, and I'm like, maybe we can go back to this. What stopped it? Introspection. This is the part when it's not recognized within us, when you can't recognize the reference point yourself because, like I said, so many different restrictions. You could have anxiety, you could have depression, short-term memory loss. Like, there's so many points. It'll show up on the outside. Look at, I spelled will wrong. If a child was going through this, what would you say? That's also something that helps me. Dang, I guess I could ask that. If a child was going through this, I'd be like, I would think about a child and they play kitchen. You pay them in like lettuce money and they're still happy. If you're going something through with the relationship, I always say, how can I keep it simple? Children are like the simplest things. But it's our adult brain that doesn't want it to be simple, which then creates that passive force. But it's up to us in those moments to remind ourselves, hey, this is the passive force. Why is this getting in the way of the higher self? What does the higher self want? What is the lesson here? What is the common denominator? Don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you don't hear it, sit for a fucking second. Patience, bro. Especially when you're on 10,000. Nothing can come from chaos, from chaotic energy. Things can only be given from chill moments, from faith, trust within yourself by slowing down. Particles naturally don't want to be moving all over the place. They want to be in a natural state, a natural neutral state where everything is harmonious, everything gets along. So how can we do that? And sometimes it requires us to face aloneness, face codependency. On the other side of it, there's always going to be something for us. But it's in the idea that we're building a new reference point. We're choosing different. And if we can remind ourselves, I was seeing if I spelled differently wrong. If we can remind ourselves of that 9, if we can get to the point of our mind and body being connected, whether it be sitting down through meditation, talking to ourselves, writing ourselves out, I've been posting my content. You go look at some of the stuff, that I do to get myself connected on Instagram, on TikTok, whatever you got to do. Send me an email. If I can, I'll respond when I can. But I mean, when we get the mind and body connected, it's easier to recognize why we have to do something. But that truth of it isn't going to come until we recognize it ourselves. That's the part. The inner self, the higher self, really only speaks once. You can ask for reassurance, sure, but there's never a back and forth and a teetering of things with the higher self. When you're being indecisive or whatever, that might be a sign that you need to pivot. You need to make a new choice. I think I got like one more slide left. Yeah. Building skills from new patterns. Take a look at Robert Dilt's logical levels of change. I think I kept this in my first book. Every time we have a thought, emotion, or experience, we create a new path connecting two or more neurons. Oops. We have to constantly regulate our nervous system for this reason. So when something happens, it is important for us to regulate ourselves. I put this over here, Robert Dilts' logical levels of change. When we're going through change, we need to address environment, behavior, capabilities, beliefs and values, identity, purpose. When we're asking ourselves questions, see if questions about ourselves or wondering what we should do or if something is right. When we're learning about ourselves, check those out. How might have your neurons been affected by what someone told you about yourself? How has your environment changed any pathways? How has your behavior, the things that you do, changed what you think about how you operate? If you continue to tell yourself that you're a piece of shit, and then you go sit to go do an art project, you're only gonna go about half-ass, regardless of what your half-assery looks like. The mind is powerful, and if we continue to tell it one thing, it'll start to believe it, and then we'll start to do it. But if we address where we might have been hurt in certain areas, and we sit and spend time, that's all life needs, spend time on something, we can then change that vibration. Every time we have a thought, emotion, or experience, okay, how can we then change those? Like I said, through your routines, through being conscious of it. I mean, there's definitely more I wanted to say with that, but I get into the habit of applying excessive force towards small things. Like, I just really wanted to just, talk a little bit. And although that might not have been what I expected, I definitely feel good. And a lot of the times I always ask myself, we should just do things to the point of our satisfaction. And I wanted to make a YouTube video anyway. Also, making a product did not sound fun. And you guys get a new YouTube video. I love when you guys email me and you're like, thank you for sharing. Thank you for, at the end of the day, that is so much more to me. I'm really proud of myself. I just got through a lesson. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.